Welcome to The Other Side. I'm Bobby Harrison, your host today, along with my co-host, Sophia Paffenroth.
Hey, Bobby.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
We're all doing good, getting ready for the holidays. We, as you, our listeners know, on The Other Side, we talk about politics and public policy issues, and today we're going to focus mainly on public policy with Cathy Grace. Dr. Cathy Grace, how you doing, ma'am?
I'm doing fine. I'm getting ready for Thanksgiving, as many of us are, yes.
I've known Dr. Grace for a long time, probably longer than either one of us want to admit, but she is part of the North Mississippi Education Consortium. She is the early childhood education program specialist. And so I guess maybe to just get us started, talk a little bit about what y'all do.
Well, with 50 years under my belt, I've done a lot of different things, and being able to be at the consortium has given me an opportunity to kind of use all of those experiences. And now I am fortunate enough to direct a center on how to teach people how to advocate. And as you know, that's what I've been doing for some time. And this is not around a particular issue. It is just, if you want to call it, the art of engagement and what advocacy can mean to Mississippians and to legislation as we get it passed. And the most interesting thing about this, Bobby, is that the teachers of the seminars or the symposium that we do are legislators, are Mississippi legislators. And so they provide information to the participants to tell them what it takes to get their attention and how to make a case. So I figured there's no better teachers than the ones that they're going to need to engage with. And so they've been very gracious and do a video for me so I can use it. And I've had classes now. And so we're hopefully going to have some people prepared to use some of those skills in the next session.
Dr. Grace, how does a person become involved in your class? I guess you sign up for it?
They can contact me, and we're not doing a public advertisement because I really want people that are serious in this. A lot of times people just go to training. But what we hope to do is to have people understand that being an advocate is not easy. It involves work, it involves research, and it also involves tough skin. And if you're easy to get your feelings hurt, then this, as far as engagement, may not be for you. You can research and provide information, but the people who are actually doing the conversations, I think they have to have a certain mindset and understand when it's personal and when it's not. So if anybody's interested, they can contact me. And it's a very easy email, cwgrace@olemiss.edu.
Awesome. Yeah. And we're here to talk about childcare today. And that's a pretty broad topic. And there's a lot to cover there. I was wondering what you think is the most common misconception around childcare today and how that might factor into some of the problems that we see.
Well, I would say there's probably two most common misconceptions in our state. And this is after years of experience, and I'm speaking from experience as well as research. I think the general public does not understand the complexities of being in a childcare business. A lot of people are still under the impression that it's just, quote, babysitting, and that's not the case at all. And licensed child care facilities have to go through some very serious regulations, and also they have to have professional training development for their teachers. So anytime that a teacher is in a classroom, that they've had some training to help them better understand the age of the child in which they're teaching, caring for. So one, I think, is people, they discount the importance of early care and education, because babies learn at birth or even before, and the first 3 years of life are critical for setting the architecture of the brain. So by not valuing this particular business or operation, then people are not looking at it as a profession that you would want to pay what the quality demands. And so we have very low paying wages in Mississippi. The average wage in Mississippi, and I say average, based on where you live and the ability of individuals to pay, because unfortunately, the particular group of people in an area can only pay so much. If you're in the Delta, your income's not exactly the same as if you were in Metro Jackson. And so they have to look at what their clients can really afford. So we're looking at an average of $10 and maybe 35 cents an hour. Now that's an average. It can start at $7.25 because that's our federal minimum wage, and that's what we choose to use. In Jackson, it can be higher, but you have to keep in mind that a Chick-fil-A employee or fast food employee or a employee at Office Depot, they make $15 or more per hour. So some people would say, why would I be in there with a screaming baby when I can go to McDonald's and all I have to do is flip a hamburger? And so the point is that we have a misconception about the critical nature of the childcare business in how people are valued. The other thing, and I'm glad to see the governor is making some connection, is that they are the backbone. Childcare providers, the industry is the backbone of community workforce. You cannot go to work if you have a family and there's nobody to care for your children before they go to school. So if they're under school age and you can't find childcare, you can't work. It's just that easy. And so no matter what your high level paying job is, if we're trying to get people in here that make, a higher wage than what we normally have had, they won't be able to take the job or stay in the job if the child care is not available for the family. And right now, I think that is a misconception among employers that they don't have a role in this, and they do very much so have a role in this. But it really is a try-share sort of thing. It should be state involvement, the business involvement, and of course the parent involvement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you had mentioned childcare workers being the backbone of the community. This week, I spoke to a childcare center director who is working 90-hour weeks and losing about $15,000 a month. And that's because she's caring for children whose parents are not paying her tuition right now because they lost access to childcare vouchers that made it affordable for them. And she doesn't want to kick them out. And so she's continuing to care for them, but it's not sustainable. And so she's really picking up the slack for the state right now. And we can get into the whole issue of childcare vouchers a little bit more. But what are some funding solutions as you see them? You had mentioned the tri-share model that the governor proposed. What are some other creative solutions that states can use to address this problem?
Well, a lot of southern states right now, of course, have suffered from administrative changes at the federal level and the unknowns about Head Start. Head Start is a very prominent piece of the child care industry across the South because it serves children in families of the lowest income. And they have, in rural areas, been sometimes the only available child care for families to utilize if they are income eligible, because you have to be income eligible. So there's early Head Start for infants and toddlers, and then there's regular Head Start, as they call it, for 3-year-olds. In Mississippi, we're lucky that we have some pre-K collaboratives in our school districts and communities, but that's only in a certain number, depending on if the district has made an application for either a SIP program, they call them, or the pre-K program. But again, it's only serving the 4-year-old population in that community. The collaborative does bring about a partnership between Head Start and, if possible, child care facility. But it is not anything near a statewide effort. So a lot of it has to do with the zip code. Where do you live? And do you have available transportation? That's another issue we have in a rural area of our state, is if you don't have a car, or if your car is broken, or you have a flat tire, you're up a creek. And that means as far as work or getting to child care facilities. So we have surveyed HR directors in some of the northeast part of the state in terms of their what they have considered as far as what's preventing people from working when they interview them or when they explain to them why they have to quit. The top two things have been childcare and transportation. And Bobby's been around long enough to know that that's probably not surprising to him, that those are the two elements that we continue to wrestle with. Because in our state, other states have invested more state dollars in child care, because if the state dollars are invested, you don't have an income eligibility requirement like you do with the money so far that we have with the TANF funds or the CCBB funds or CCDD or CCPP funds that are, as she mentioned to you, the lady you talked to, that's where she's lost her money, is due to the eligibility of certain families that she's been serving. And during COVID, the state's got a lot of money, federal money, to help offset some of the problems that COVID had presented. Then when COVID was deemed no longer an issue, that money was phased out. And so they now call it the cliff effect, which means that the money was no longer there. And so you had a problem with the fact that there was no funds to put in that hole that now existed. And so that's why we've got some of the problems that she mentioned to you now. But state investment, again, bigger than the $15 million last year, which is appreciated, don't get me wrong. But in the scheme of things, some states give $50 million in the South, not in California, but in the South. So if you look at Louisiana or Alabama, their models, there's a bigger investment than what we've made in the past.
Yeah, Dr. Grace, you talk about the governor's program that he's proposing is Tri-Share, and you do agree that it should be a combination of the parents, the state, and the corporations or companies working on child care. I mean, I go back, I think about way back when I had young kids, the Daily Journal, the newspaper I worked in Tupelo and lived for so long, they had opened a child care center right next door to the Daily Journal, which was a blessing for our family. And does that happen much anymore?
Well, as usual, Tupelo was ahead of its time. In many cases, I say. And in that case, that's one case. The Daily Journal is an example of how a business and some other business partners, it wasn't just a journal, it was a few other partners.
Some banks, I think.
Came together and because of the needs of their employees, developed a child care facility. And that was due to the committee, due to the leadership of the people in the community, as well as the leadership in those industry or businesses. And we have in our town the hospital, who has provided child care for their employees. They have grown now and they've expanded because of the crisis in infant and toddler care. And even with their expansion, any time when I've checked with them, they have up to 200 children on the waiting list. Can you believe that, Bobby? Just at the hospital. And that's for employees. And over at Toyota now, we have a brand new facility that they built on campus, $10 million. It serves 100 children. And they've indicated to me that's the tip of the iceberg. Now, that's the construction included. One of the models that I hope that communities will consider and businesses will consider is to meet with local child care providers and talk with them about how they can improve the quality of existing programs, number one. Number two, how they can help them with salaries. If we had a higher wage, then we would have an easier time to find more qualified staff, and they would be able to stay. We have a lot of turnover because we find that people just can't live off of the wages that they're making, and that includes the woman you've talked to about her own business. Mm-hmm. And I would say to you the other thing that is to be considered when companies or businesses, corporations come in, is that when the negotiations are being done between an Amazon or a Target, that there would be some understanding that they would contribute to that up front so that it would be a part of their package and that they would then be able to work hand in hand. Child care providers need to be a part of community planning. They've never been brought to the table and they've never been considered an important player. Well, now I can tell you that some of here in Community Development Foundation and some other places, now they have young employees who need child care themselves. So now that's become an issue because they see it every day themselves. It's not for somebody else's issue. It's now become their issue. Same way with banks. It's now becoming their issue because it affects their employees. So I think that we've got to have public awareness and then we have to act on that. We're good about saying, oh dear, that is a problem. We really need to do something about this infant care. My granddaughter can't find a place for her baby, but we don't do anything. And so I think that the real sign of progress for this state is to begin to invest in their people and to invest in our people prior to birth. The governor is all about babies and wanting to make sure babies get a good start. We're hoping this year to promote a tax-exempt status for diapers. That doesn't sound like a lot, but every little bit helps for families. And if you haven't had a baby in a long time, which I haven't and Bobby hadn't,
Thank goodness.
I can say that based on having conversations with young mamas, new mamas, that if you have a baby that's born in premature or with some kind of a medical or dietary issue, one can of formula that lasts 1 week can cost between $30 and $50 a week.
Gracious.
So just think about that. That's $200 in formula. Then when you think about the cost of diapers, and then you think about childcare costs, and some people say, well, then just don't have a baby. Well, in some cases, that may be a temporary issue, but a lot of folks want to have a child. And a lot of times, sometimes babies come, whether planned or not. And that doesn't mean people are irresponsible. It just sometimes happens. So we can't say that's an answer. The answer is that we've got to get some real serious discussion and action behind what we say we want to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that will, particularly with health regard, when we look at we're at a crisis, the health department says we're at a crisis with our infant mortality. Well, we were at a crisis with our reading scores several years ago, and then look what's happened. We put our money where our mouth was, and we also got serious about it. So surely we could get serious about babies' lives and the lives of their mamas if we really wanted to invest. We've got some models now. I've listed a couple of them for you. We've looked at how you could expect communities to sit down with somebody at the state level in workforce development, not necessarily in the Department of Human Services, because they serve the low-income families to help them with the gaps that they need so they can work. But there are a whole bunch of people in our state that are not eligible for any kind of DHS stipend. But they're getting in the real bind because they make too much for any of that kind of benefit, but they don't make enough to pay. For instance, they have done a survey at Mississippi State last year to look at what it costs across the state, just the average. It costs $167 a week for infant care a week. And that's an average. Then if you look up as far as toddlers, that's $160 a week. So what if you have a 3-year-old and a baby? How much is that? I'm looking at it right now. That's over $300 a week.
About $350. Yeah.
Thank you. That mathematical interjection. All right. So we up to $1,200 more or less a month. Mm-hmm. And work that's been done by a report called ALICE that people probably are not aware of. Y'all may be. But ALICE stands for Asset Limited Income Constraint Employed. Now, that's a mouthful. But they, through the United Ways of Mississippi, disseminated this report. And it says, in this 2025 report, 19% of our households were defined as being in poverty, and an additional 30% were experiencing financial hardship. So that's almost 50% of our families in one degree or another are financially struggling.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm kind of on the bandwagon about the governor's on to something, but he's got to have maybe some more fleshing out and a bigger vision than what he stated. He's got a good idea, but it needs to be enlarged. And the business community, we have an opportunity now with tax credits. We've had one on the book for almost 3 years that businesses can use by actually paying employees up to $6,000 for their child care and get a write-off, a tax break.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many companies, how many industries have used it? Take a wild guess.
I assume it's not many the way you're
It's like
talking.
a handful,
Yeah.
right?
Zero.
Zero.
Oh, wow.
No.
That's less than not many.
Yeah.
And we're trying to find out why. And many of them that we've talked to said, well, I didn't know it was there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the tax commission hasn't necessarily been blowing it out that it is there. So we're going to try to work on cleaning up some of that to make it easier for industries to take advantage of it. But again, that's not necessarily going to help the small businesses because they don't necessarily have the upfront money to pay the employee to get the tax credit on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why there needs to be more attention paid to creative ways that communities can develop. What it would look like in Tupelo would not be what it would look like in Meridian or at Pass Christian or in Natchez or in Indianola.
Mm-hmm.
But it still needs to be there. And when y'all think about this, when you go to a restaurant, any restaurant, when you go and spend the night, if you're going to see your family and you need to travel somewhere and spend the night in a Holiday Inn or a Hilton Inn or something, usually the women that are working during the holidays, who's keeping their children? Childcare is closed.
Mm-hmm.
They may not have family.
Yeah.
They may be a single parent. And we don't even have a clue because that's not normally where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Police officers, firemen, non-traditional hours, and the care that those families are going to need is non-existent, more or less, in our state. In Tupelo, we have one, maybe, facility that is equipped for nighttime care outside of what the hospital is providing
Mm-hmm.
or what Toyota provides. So you see, it's back to, are we really looking at industrial support when we talk about bringing the industries in? And I'm very pleased. We got every day you open up new things for Amazon editions, new things for helicopter, programs and so forth. But where are these people going to come from? And what are we going to do to help them want to stay if we don't have a child care facility or a culture that is conducive to supporting the family?
Sure. Yeah. Well, you had mentioned that one of the reasons we pay childcare workers so little is that we view it as babysitting and not education. But it's interesting because when the child turns 5, we put them in school and we invest in public schools and we don't think twice about it. So why is it that everything changes at 5?
Well, I'm a dinosaur in that. If Bobby knows what I'm going to say, I actually taught school and lived in this state before we had public kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And that was quite a battle unto itself. And we had a tremendous leader in Governor William Winter. But I was responsible in part for helping get that program started. We had some of the same arguments about 5-year-olds. Well, they need to stay at home. They don't need to be in school. They need to be with their mama or grandmama, or, we don't need to have them in that public school setting. We don't have a way to set it up for them. Blah, blah, blah. Well, within 2 years, and I may be It may have even been 1 year. And again, I say Bobby knows because he was around then. There was absolute 100+% for public kindergarten. We got to have it everywhere. I mean, this is the greatest thing ever happened. And so it's back to the change in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
One of the last states in the United States to have public kindergarten. One of the last. And so, again, we're near the bottom in terms of how we're looking at quality childcare and how we are expecting. And actually, as you mentioned, there's a gap in our understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So much more research has taught us about brain development in infants and toddlers. We know so much more now than we did 15 years ago, 5 years ago, about what they need for a strong architecture or a wiring system so that they can take on these high-level jobs that everybody's so proud about bringing in here.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that workforce prepared right now, and it doesn't start when they go to middle school or STEM or high school, it starts when they are 4 years old. Just recently, like 2 years ago, I was actually working with 4-year-olds to teach them how to code. People say, what? Yes. There are games that you use to teach children, again, early on, how to begin with the basics of coding. So it's all about what you know about how children learn. It's not about what can they learn. It's how to teach them what you may have considered to be very sophisticated concepts or skills.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that a lot of people think that, childcare only affects the kids, the parents, childcare workers. But when you think about it the way that you just laid out, I mean, it affects everyone, right? I mean, it affects the state's future, the country's future.
Well, and that's a thing that I hope we can realize like yesterday. The country has realized it. Has Mississippi realized it? And that we're going to compete with programs that have been operating for 10, 15, 20 years as far as their early childhood system. So how are we going to strengthen an early childhood system for the entire population of children in our state? Not just one population, which has been more so in the past, those who are in families of low income or poverty. That's not to forget them. Heavens, no. It's not to neglect them. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying use what we've learned and build on that and expand it. Because we have to acknowledge that all families that are working, unless they are working in a very high level position in high administration, if they have a family of 2 children and they're close together in age, they're going to run into some of these same financial issues, plus the fact that even if they could pay $500 a day for childcare for an infant, they can't find it because the facilities are just not here. And some teachers say, and directors say, I have an empty classroom. I used to have infants down there, but I can't find the people that will work. Taking care of a baby is extremely, you have to have skills to be able to do that maybe with a 4-year-old, it's a different kind of skill. Babies are totally dependent on you. And I said to you when we've talked earlier, if you've ever been in a room with 5 children under the age of 1 at one time by yourself, that's how infant and toddler teachers spend their day. Now think about that. Grandpas and grandmas and anybody else that's listening to this right now, that's their job, and they're making less than a McDonald's worker. And they're responsible for the feeding, the changing, the stimulation, cognitive stimulation, the hygiene, the activities that they would participate in to help with their muscles development, and all the things you have to do when you're looking at child development. One person with up to 5 babies. Now, our licensing regulations allow up to 5. If you're fortunate enough and you have a 3-to-1, then that's excellent. But even if you have a 3-to-1, just think about that. Diaper changing, hand washing, different feeding schedules. I think I could go on and on, but y'all get the picture.
Yeah. Dr. Grace, you mentioned your work on public kindergarten. But you were the first person I ever met who was, and this was a long time ago, but it was after public kindergarten, talking about the importance of early childhood development. I'm talking about for infants and toddlers way before age 4 or kindergarten. And you had the program in Tupelo that were training mothers and giving books to new mothers and talking about the importance of reading to newborns. And at the time, a lot of people just kind of didn't pay attention to what you were saying, but you kind of won the battle. At least I think everyone now, you mentioned the science, recognize the importance of early childhood education. And I think most politicians and policymakers acknowledge that and they talk about it. But I guess what we have in Mississippi, maybe we talk about it, but we don't put our money on what we're talking about it to the extent we should. Is that a fair statement, or am I off base?
Now, I'm not going to say you're off base. I'm going to say, well, I must not be a good teacher because you have heard me go around this for 50 years. And that's about, believe it or not, I've been doing this 50 years.
And most people, everybody agrees with you now, but but
you see how long it took. That's what I'm saying. You see how long it took. But now if you're in agreement, that still doesn't mean you've acted. So if you really agree, then you've got to look at where you're going to make some investments. We have funds if we were looking at workforce development. Everybody is all about, let's get this workforce ready to go. Let's get these people trained. We've got community college system in our state is one of the best. We have ways to teach and train early childhood teachers. We have technology degrees in early childhood at most of the community colleges, not all of them, but most. We have teachers there. We have 4-year degrees that people could go into, but one reason that's held them back going to a 4-year degree is the salaries. Because public school teachers, even as we know, are not being paid what is on the Southern average now. Well, think if you go for 4 years and you're working in a childcare facility and what you make, that doesn't even make sense. A 2-year degree person can get a job as a Head Start assistant teacher or as an assistant teacher in a public school pre-K. They make more money either place. That still doesn't help us with our infants and toddlers. It doesn't help us with that 4-year-old who has not ever been anywhere before, and they're going into a pre-K program. And the pre-K teachers who I've worked with say, boy, can you tell the difference? That child over there's never been anywhere. These children over here have been to a program before they got to me. They know stuff. Stuff meaning they know how to hold a crayon. They know how to line up. They know how to sit and respond to questions that indicate they can comprehend a book, a story. They know how to eat with utensils. Now, I know you think, though, that's crazy. But I've even now, and just as one of these FYIs, now they make pull-up diapers at a size 8 to accommodate over a 100-pound child. So we're seeing more children going into 3-year-old classrooms that aren't potty trained because their parents continue to use pull-ups. Now, we're getting into issues people probably don't want to think about or even, wanted to know. But those things are important when you're going to school. I mean, that's not going to go when you start kindergarten. So you see, there's a lot of things that go into a comprehensive program. How many children do we have that need glasses, that have a hearing loss? We're all about reading. We don't sometimes have children screened until they get to those pre-K classes or until they get even to kindergarten. So how much time have they lost? Our early intervention program is in desperate need of having some repair, and that's to help children from birth up to 3. So in terms of developmental delays, we need a whole group of folks that can be attentive to helping those parents and teachers with children who have some kind of developmental delay. So as you see, we've got plenty of things that we can invest in. And we've got people who are more than willing to help with at the community level, at the state level, with some planning. But I appreciate any time I have to say, Governor, you're on to something, but let's expand it.
Well, Dr. Grace, we could go on about this for another hour, and we appreciate your time. Just because I'm such a nerd, one quick question. You mentioned a tax exemption for diapers. Would that be like the sales tax on the diapers would be waived? Is that how that would
That's
work?
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
That would be
So it would just be a sales tax that would not be, allocated, or it would not be on diapers. We figured it would save about $70 a year for a family, but at this point in time, that's groceries.
Yeah, and
but it's a start. Many states have a lot of baby items that they've now made tax exempt,
and that's simple enough for the state to do. Yeah, well, Sophia, I appreciate it. Dr. Grace, it's always good to talk to you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was nice to visit with both of you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.